Um, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely mourning the rights, particularly because like I just came out like a year ago. Like, what if I want to get married?
Damn it.
You
Well,
know?
congratulations, 1 year being out.
Thanks,
Yay.
thanks. I mean,
Damn.
it's been a nice year, but what I'm most
Couldn't find a wife in all this year, huh? Didn't.
yeah, I mean, listen, I gave up on men. I was like, I'm just gonna be single, die alone, it's fine. And then Portia came along, so
Hey, Portia. Hey,
it
girl.
all worked
Hey.
out for me. Um, but what I'm most concerned about is that we are repeating the same patterns that we repeated with Roe.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is, I've been doing repro for at this job for 13 years, but generally for 15 at Rewire News Group. And I spent a good 8, 9 years on Twitter in the heyday of Twitter before it went to the
I
Nazis.
remember. Yeah.
And every time I would mention, particularly during the 2016 election, like, y'all, we got to vote on the courts. Like, I understand that a lot of you don't like Hillary, and I understand everyone's got beef. The Bernie Sanders people are yelling at the Clinton people. I mean, it was a mess back then. But I kept saying, we have to vote because of the courts. And people yelled at me. They yelled at me. They called me a fearmonger. Oh, Roe is safe. It's not going to blah, 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 blah. And then what did the court do in Dobbs? Overturned Roe. So now I'm here to tell you, all of your listeners, you and all of your listeners, that the same framework, the same test that Sam Alito used to reverse Roe and to end the constitutional right to abortion, that's the same test that the conservatives on the court are going to use to end the right to same sex marriage. What I mean by that is there's a late 90s case called Washington v. Glucksberg, and there are not a lot of people that are talking about Glucksberg, but Glucksberg is a huge case. In 1997, Washington banned physician assisted suicide. Like people who are our age probably remember the whole Jack Kevorkian
Oh,
business, like
yeah.
back in the late 90s. So they ended the right to physician assisted suicide, saying that there was no substantive due process right to physician assisted suicide. Now, substantive due process rights are rights that are not spelled out in the Constitution,
Right.
right? So they're like the right to abortion we used to have, the right to use contraception, the right to get married to someone of a different race, the right to have same-sex intimacy, the right to marry the person of the same sex. Those are all privacy rights that are not spelled out in the Constitution. And the conservatives on the court, particularly Alito and Thomas, don't believe that substantive due process rights exist,
Mm.
right? Because they're not spelled out in the Constitution. So what do? You got to take a look at whether or not there's a quote, history and tradition of these particular rights. What does history and tradition mean? It means whatever the founders thought, whatever the powdered wig wearers thought in the late 1700s, if they thought that it existed, if they thought that it was a right, then it's a right in 2025. If
Bingo.
there was no same-sex marriage in 1789, there's no same-sex marriage now. Alito claimed that there was no abortion back then. That was not true. He cherry-picked evidence, but that was the claim, that this country doesn't have a history and tradition of abortion, and therefore you do not have a right to abortion now. That's the Glucksberg test, right? So if you hear people talking about Glucksberg, think history and tradition. In the Bruin case, right? The gun law case, even though that's an enumerated right, it's in the Bill
Yep.
of Rights, Thomas still used the history and tradition, saying that there was no history and tradition of depriving people of guns or for New York to impose these gun restrictions. So all of that is to say, in Thomas's concurrence, he explicitly said substantive due process rights don't exist. And Obergefell, Griswold, and Lawrence, Obergefell is same-sex marriage. Griswold v. Connecticut, 1965, birth control is okay for married people.
Yep.
And what was the other one? Said Lawrence v. Texas, 2003, I think, which decriminalized same-sex intimacy, right? Those three cases he listed as being next on the chopping block. Now, Sam Alito's a dirty fucking liar. And so,
Yeah.
in his majority opinion, he said, oh, but this is just abortion. We're not touching other substantive due process rights. He's a
He could
dirty
have said
liar.
today. We're not touching it in this
Today.
opinion right now.
Today, because he's been at Federalist Society events raging against Obergefell. The man can't stand Obergefell. Roberts hates Obergefell so much he read his dissent from the bench. Gorsuch,
Jesus.
Kavanaugh, and Barrett all signed on to that same Glucksberg history and tradition test, both in Bruin and in Dobbs. That's the test that's going to take down same-sex marriage. Our favorite Trump judge, Matt Kazmarek, used a, quote, history and tradition test to take down a student drag show at West Texas A&M. So all of this is to say that people who are telling you, oh, it's safe because polling, people love gay marriage. People liked abortion too.
They really like abortion.
53% majority wanted legalized abortion. Same sex marriage is about 68. So the court does not care really about public opinion. And then there's the Respect for Marriage Act. People will tell me, oh, but the Respect for Marriage Act, we have federal protections now. Those federal protections protect people who are currently married, and they protect people if Obergefell falls, if they send it back to the states the way they sent abortion back to the states,
Yep.
then the states that are hostile to marriage equality will have to recognize marriages in that are legal in whatever state they're performed.
Right.
So people who are currently married will be fine for now until Congress repeals the Respect for Marriage Act or whatever.
Which
right?
is coming, right? Especially if they can
What's going to happen is that people who want to get married are going to have, and they're in a hostile state. You're in Texas. You're going to have to go to California or Oregon or Washington to get married, and then go back to Texas, and then Texas has to recognize your marriage. But poor people can't do that. Young people don't have the funds to go do that, right? So what we have here is like these Peter Thiel, rich gay tech bro conservatives who are going to be fine, right? Either they are married now and they're safe, or they can just go take their jet somewhere and get married and come back. What this does is it really pulls the ladder up behind like the sort of Lincoln log Republicans or whatever they're called. Lincoln cabin, what are they called?
Lincoln
logs are the
Lincoln log
toys when
Republican.
I was a kid.
No,
log
those are Lincoln
cabin
logs.
Republicans.
Log, yes. I was like, there is a log in there. The log cabin
like,
Republican.
Log? I don't think it's Lincoln log.
It's like
so,
the wooden
that
Legos.
was a lot of rambling, but that is just to say, please do not listen to the people who are going to pat you on the head and tell you that you're panicking because you have concerns about the validity of your marriage, what's going to happen if Obergefell falls. If you're thinking about getting married now, you might want to step up those plans. I mean, it's a real issue, and that issue is being exacerbated by people who refuse to see the writing on the wall.
So, Imani, you know what else we don't have a history and tradition of in this country for any length of time that the founding fathers might have respected? Black freedom and equality.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is for my homophobes, because we always, we know that we're not just all on the same page. And I know that we have a loving, wide, and diverse audience, and that includes homophobic people. And so for my homophobes out there who are like, well, the gays shouldn't be getting married anyway because it's an abomination. You know what also is considered an abomination by these people? You, me, us. Our existence.
Interracial marriage, or any of your homophobic listeners married to white people, right?
Yeah.
Like,
which is always fun. Interracial marriage, yes. The right for Black people to get married at all. That was something that was within the province of the white man who owned you and his white wife who co-owned you. That was not something that was recognized by the state. States did not recognize a right for Black people to get married. They didn't even recognize our right for us to exist as human beings. That is not within the tradition and history of this country.
That's where jumping the broom came from.
Thank you. It's not
just
something cute
it's like, but that's the thing. It's like, whatever rights they take away from marginalized people, they're going to take away from everybody. And that's why I get so irate when I hear people like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom talking about, well, parents have legitimate concerns about trans girls playing sports. Man, there are like less than 50 kids that this even applies to, right? Conservatives are propagandizing all of this trans women in sports. It's about fairness in sports to get Democrats to basically radicalize them into transphobia, like unnecessarily, right? Because you're not affected by trans women in sports. And then that's the gateway to other problems, to bathroom bans and to whatever. That's a different topic. But the point is that you have to look at what conservatives are doing, and you have to believe what they say that they're going to do. And if they say that they're going to, if you have a group of people, one of them saying, oh, we're just going to limit it to this. But then you have angry Clarence Thomas over here like, no, I'm coming for all your rights. All of your privacy rights. I want to know what's going on in your bedroom. I want to know what's going on in your marriage. I want to know how many kids you have. I want to know why you don't have more. I mean, this is all really sort of like the building blocks of a broken democracy. And we are here. And I just do not want to see people for the next year or two, or however long it takes for a clean case challenging Obergefell to make it to the court. I don't want people to be naive about what's coming.
And Obergefell is a part, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, I might be making a bridge a little too far, but isn't that considered part of the progeny of Griswold?
Yeah.
So, guys, I don't want to overly lawyerly this conversation, but Griswold is a case that, and we've mentioned Griswold earlier this week when I talked to you guys about the fact that having access to birth control was something that had to be secured through the courts. The case that allowed for that to happen for married people was Griswold v. What was it? Connecticut. Connecticut, and that case established an additional substantive due process right, which is not enumerated or written out explicitly in the Constitution, and that is the right to privacy. So everything that Imani just said, how many kids do you have? Why don't you have more kids? What birth control are you on? Why are you on that birth control as opposed to another form of birth control? All of those are questions that you typically don't have to answer to anyone outside of the person you are sleeping with. And even then, depending on who you're sleeping with, you don't have to answer those questions because you have a substantive due process right to privacy. That is not a part of the Constitution. That is also a part. And so when we're talking about Obergefell, the case that allows for same-sex marriage, it's not that they're going after just same-sex marriage. They're going after this idea that privacy rights, which allows for same-sex marriage, they are going after this idea that privacy rights should not be a part of your constitutional understanding as to what your rights are. So if I want to know who you're sleeping with, because I'm in a Handmaid's Tale approach to reproductive rights, then the only thing that prevents me, a government actor, from forcing you to tell me who you're sleeping with and how many kids you have and why you don't have more kids and what your reproductive issues are is because you have a right to privacy. You can marry who you want to marry because you have a right to privacy for now. The way I read Clarence, the coon Thomas, he is coming for them privacy rights. Like he does not, unless it's for interracial marriage. But then I think he might think he's going to be dead soon, so it won't impact him. So he doesn't care.
And also the Respect for Marriage Act, which explicitly includes interracial marriage, and I think that's a big tell. The fact that Democrats and then the 12 Republicans who signed on to the bill after a bunch of religious exemptions were included, so that even if you live in a state that doesn't ban same-sex marriage, religious organizations don't have to participate or facilitate wedding ceremonies. You don't have to sell wedding invitations or websites or do pictures or whatever. But, I lost my train of thought.
Churches.
Right. Thomas and Loving. Yeah. So the Respect for Marriage Act protects people who are currently married. And it protects people who get married in a state that the state where the marriage is legal, where it is entered to, right? Like if you go to another state and it's legal for you to get married there, then all the states have to recognize your marriage. So I know a lot of people, and I have joked the same, like, Clarence Thomas doesn't want to talk about Loving because, his wife is white. But I mean, technically, to the extent that Congress doesn't repeal the Respect for Marriage Act, his marriage would basically be grandfathered in.
Oh, so he'd be so just like he got included in affirmative action, though he's trying to destroy
pull the ladder up,
and then pull the ladder up. His marriage would also be protected because him and Jenny would be allowed to then engage in whatever future January 6th conniving that they and their best friends might do, but they would be protected. So Clarence Thomas be like the last coon on the boat because he stay getting a benefit that he then try to snatch from somebody else.